We are now done week 13 of the NFL season for all but 6 teams, and despite 8 teams not playing on Sunday, there were 2 teams that had a bye week, those being the Panthers and Bucks. We had a very eventful and action-filled week. The Browns beat the Titans and moved to 9-3, the Giants stunningly beat the Seahawks, and the Patriots absolutely dominated the Chargers. This was the first time Justin Herbert looked normal and not like a future superstar of the league, and it had to happen eventually, but I think it's fair to say nobody would have thought the Patriots would go out there and win by 6 scores. That was by far the most surprising result of Sunday, but we have a lot to dive into for today's video as it seemed like it was one of the more eventful weeks in some time. Now, before we start, the takeaways are in no order of importance. Also, I will give away a Saquon Barkley autographed jersey if we hit 18,000 subscribers before the new year, so tell a friend, tell a Giants fan, tell whoever may have an interest in that. Make sure to like the video and subscribe while you're here, as each help a ton in terms of the growth of the channel. Now let's begin. And the first takeaway is it is time to blow things up in Chicago. They are now 5-7 after starting the year 5-1 and blew a double-digit lead to the Lions. There are only a handful of teams that have started out either 5-0 or 5-1 and missed the playoffs in NFL history, but the Bears will soon be added to the list. There was a tweet a few years ago from Matt Miller that said General Manager Ryan Pace just got fired with this draft, speaking of the 2017 draft, and it looks to be true. The first selection the Bears made that year was, of course, quarterback Mitch Trubisky, and we know which 2 players were selected later in the first round. Not only is a bust of a quarterback at number 2 overall bad, but the Bears' second round pick was tight end Adam Shaheen. Shaheen was traded prior to the start of this season for just a 6th round pick, and Mitch is, well, he's Mitch. They had 3 other picks that year, which were safety Eddie Jackson, and credit to Ryan Pace for that hit and Tariq Cohen as well. Their other selection was a Division II guard who has never been on an active NFL roster. So for what it's worth, 2 hits, or at least those hits, don't make up for absolutely whiffing on Mitch and Shaheen. They just don't. Now, their final 4 games, as you'll see now, are home against Houston, at Minnesota, at Jacksonville, and home against Green Bay. So just being honest, I think they'll finish 6-10 after starting out 5-1. Their offense is absolutely atrocious, and yes, they put up 30 points on Sunday, but neither Mitch nor Nick Foles are the long-term answer at the position, and that is clear. David Montgomery had a solid day on the ground with 72 yards and 2 touchdowns, but it is hard to get excited about anything in this offense aside from Allen Robinson. Teams draft busts all the time, some more monumental than others, and unfortunately Mitch Trubisky will be a reason, though not the only reason. I want to get that clear, as to why Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy should and probably will lose their jobs. And next we go to Seattle to discuss this game between the Giants and the Seahawks. So we start by saying Seattle finally came out on the wrong end of one of these games. They started out 5-0 and had a week 6 bye, and one could definitely argue Seattle should have lost to Minnesota on Sunday Night Football and arguably New England earlier in the year too. That would hypothetically put them at 6-6, which brings this topic. The Seahawks aren't as good as some people think, and they are at this point in time, I don't want to say frauds, but they're not serious contenders. Their next 2 games are easy wins, and they will be 10-4 2 weeks from this video. Their remaining 4 games, as you'll see, are home against the Jets, at the football team, home against the Rams, and at the 49ers. They will win at minimum the first 2 and more than likely be 3-1. Finish 3-1, that is. 4-0 for that stretch isn't out of the equation, but 3 of their losses since the bye week have been at Arizona, at Buffalo, and at the Rams. By no means are these easy games to win, but you would think an elite team or a top 2 or 3 team in the NFL, which they strive to be, would have been able to pull out at least one of those games. So what we're going to take a look at is their wins. Credit to them for beating the Cardinals at home a few weeks ago, as no game against them is ever easy, but their wins have been against teams like the Falcons, the Patriots, who started out 1-5 and were clearly not the same team as they are now, the Ryan Fitzpatrick-led Dolphins, and the Vikings, who, like the Patriots, were definitely not the same team then as they are now. So not to discredit Seattle, but more so keeping it realistic with them as a team, but the whole let Russ cook and Russ for MVP talk has more than died down, as we're now at a point where he lost to Colt McCoy, and the future for them certainly isn't as bright as it once was. I don't think there's any way this team can get to the Super Bowl with the path they'll have now, but like the old saying goes, any given Sunday. At this point in time, the only way they could get to the Super Bowl is if they had the home field advantage throughout the playoffs, and as we've seen, even at this point in time, that may not be enough. Now we head to LA to discuss the game between the Patriots and the Chargers. This will be a much shorter segment than the others, but it comes down to Anthony Lynn needing to be fired. The Chargers had their first loss of the year last week by more than one score, and it's safe to say Sunday was their second of those. A 45-point loss at home is unacceptable, and even the Jets this year, who by the way are historically bad, haven't been beat by that margin. They have a gem of a player, the Chargers that is, in Justin Herbert, and they shouldn't waste his first few years of development with a coach that's not going to lead them to anything of note. Herbert will be a big attraction to head coaching candidates, and they should definitely strike while the iron is hot. They selected 6th overall last year in the draft, and they're going to pick in the top 10 again this year, except this year they have a clear franchise quarterback. The biggest takeaway from this game is the Patriots, despite a very slow start, are very much in the hunt, and the Chargers need to move on from Anthony Lynn. Now we head to the desert to discuss the Rams and Cardinals. So, hand up, admittedly, I was dead wrong about the Rams in 2020. I honestly thought they were going to be a 7-9 or 8-8 team and be that way for the next few years, largely due to trading multiple first-round picks for Jalen Ramsey and having Jared Goff as their quarterback. Not that there's anything wrong with Goff, to be clear, I just didn't think this roster was that talented and that his contract would come up more often, similar to how Kirk Cousins does when he's not performing well. Anyways, the Rams have significantly outperformed what a lot of people thought they would do heading into the year, and as of today, they sit at the top of the NFC West. They play New England on Thursday night, which should be a good game in itself due to both teams clicking. The Rams had a defensive touchdown on Sunday, and if they make a postseason run, which they very well could, it will be due in some part to their defense. This isn't a team that will consistently win 45-41 games, but they are a team that will get the job done, and we have seen that time and time again this year. Aside from getting swept by the 49ers, they are 8-2 with losses to only at Buffalo and at Miami, which are two very good teams in their own rights. Now, if you're thinking, how can he say what he said about Seattle but praise the Rams for losing to a few good teams, which by the way would be a valid question, here's why. The Rams have beat Tampa in Tampa, they have beat Seattle at home, and on Sunday, beat the Cardinals in their stadium by double digits. Now, as for Arizona, they fall to 6-6 and are at this point in time out of the playoff picture. Minnesota has to play at Tampa and at New Orleans still, so I don't expect them to make the playoffs at this point in time. Minnesota, that is. The Cardinals started the year 5-2 and are now 6-6 and are just 1-4 since their Week 8 bye, which is very concerning. They play at the Giants this week, and normally you would think, oh, it's just the Giants, but they have 100% stepped up the past month or so and will definitely cause them some problems. This game is certainly winnable for the Cardinals, but they are skidding down the stretch to say the least. Growing pains are a very real thing for young NFL teams, and the Arizona Cardinals are certainly experiencing them right now. This division will be tough for the next few years and probably half decade, so the growing pains and the losses they're going through now will only help them over the next 3 to 4 years. And lastly, we discussed the 9-3 Browns and their game against the Tennessee Titans. So first things first when discussing this game. If you know a Browns fan, if you are a Browns fan, or whatever the case may be if you're related to one, then get excited because it's been countless years since they've been relevant like this, and it was a huge win for them to put them at 9-3 through 3 quarters of the year. Do not, under any circumstance, be that guy that says, oh, well, they're not going anywhere, or Baker sucks, or whatever. Just don't be the guy that kills their complete mood. Just don't. Just let them enjoy their day because they've put up with decades of bad play, so to say they deserve this would be an understatement. So credit to them and credit to Baker Mayfield for throwing 4 touchdown passes in a win, a huge road win at that. The Browns are 7-1 when both guard Wyatt Teller and Nick Chubb play, and are just 2-2 when they don't. So those two being in the lineup down the stretch and into the playoffs will be critical for this team and how far they can go. Going into yesterday's game, I had serious doubts about them and whether or not they could handle Tennessee, but they proved myself wrong as they were up 38-7 at half. Yes, the Titans made it a game, but unfortunately for them it doesn't matter since they didn't complete the comeback. The Browns play the Ravens next Monday night and should win that game based on how they're playing and really how the Ravens are playing as of late. As for the Titans, they don't have a pass rush, and when playing in the postseason, that is arguably one of the biggest things a team needs. While they do have Derrick Henry, there's only so much he can do as he doesn't play defense and seemingly neither do the Titans. Now for the other games, the Vikings scared their fans per usual, and had they not won and blew a game to the 1-10 now 1-11, Mike Glennon led Jags, then I would 100% be calling for Mike Zimmer's job. The Raiders squeaked out a win against the Jets, and shout out Sam Darnold for leveling that defender. The Packers took care of business in what may be the end of Carson Wentz's starting career. Who knows with that train wreck quarterback situation. Now, with that being said, that's all I have for today's video. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. And if you did, let me know what you think in the comments. Have a great day. Love you guys. Deuces. Peace.